All right, so have you ever thought about those like crazy initiation rituals some jobs have?
Oh, yeah.
Well, imagine getting ready for a job that makes you the spiritual leader of a whole community, talking directly to God.
Wow.
That's exactly what we're going to be looking at today, the consecration of Aaron, the very first high priest of the Israelites.
And where are we looking?
Straight from the book of Leviticus.
That's serious stuff. It's like the ultimate onboarding, but instead of paperwork, you got a week-long ceremony just packed with symbolism.
I'm already interested. We've got a whole bunch of sources here to help us out, scholarly articles, historical context, even some comparisons to other ancient rituals.
Sounds thorough.
So what's our goal?
Well, I think our mission today is to figure out not just what happened, but why it was so important to the Israelites.
I like it.
Because every single step and every detail was carefully planned out. This wasn't just a big show. It was about transforming Aaron from just a normal guy into something sacred.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, the makeover. We're talking washing, dressing, the whole 9 yards. Aaron gets dressed up in these super specific clothes. It's like a tunic, a sash, a robe, an ephod. It's like a spiritual fashion show.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and you can't forget about the breastpiece, which had those mysterious Urim and Thummim in it.
The what?
Urim and Thummim.
What are those?
Honestly, even we experts don't really know. Some think they were used for, like, I don't know, divination, maybe even talking directly to God.
Hold on. So Aaron's basically wearing, like, the ultimate divine bling. I'm picturing something straight out of Indiana Jones, but instead of hunting for treasure, he's all decked out in holy gear.
It is quite the image, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it wasn't about looking fancy. Each piece probably had a deep meaning to it. Like the robe, for example. It probably stood for Aaron's authority and his role as a go-between, between God and the people.
Oh, that makes sense. Now, here's something that I find interesting. Aaron's sons, who are also becoming priests, go through a similar ceremony. But the text doesn't really go into detail about it. It's almost like they got the off-brand version of the holy fashion makeover.
Yeah, that's a great point. It really shows the hierarchy in the priesthood. Aaron's the high priest, the main guy, the top dog of holiness, so to speak. His sons are important too, but they're definitely in a supporting role.
I see. Okay, so wardrobe change is done. What's next?
Well, next, they basically anoint everything in sight.
Everything.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Moses is going around the tabernacle putting oil on every surface, every piece of furniture, even the wash basin. He even sprinkles the altar 7 times. Talk about attention to detail.
Wow, 7 times. That's wild. Imagine what it must have smelled like in there. Like a crazy mix of incense and olive oil, filling the air with like this holy vibe.
You know, this anointing wasn't just about making things shiny. It was about turning the ordinary into something extraordinary.
So they're basically making the whole tabernacle feel sacred, like drawing a line and saying, this is God's space.
Exactly. It's powerful.
Yeah.
It really says something about the presence of God. And this focus on cleanliness, all the washing and anointing, it shows how important purity was in the Israelite worldview.
Right, you can't just stroll into God's presence all dirty, right? Like showing up to a fancy dinner in your sweatpants.
Well, maybe not that bad. But you get the idea. To be near to God, you needed to be physically and spiritually clean. They really believed that even a little bit of impurity could block them from God.
So we've got the fashion show, the holy oil slick.
Yeah.
What's next in this spiritual boot camp?
Well, get ready because things are about to get really interesting. Next up, sacrifices. And not just one. We're talking 3 different animal sacrifices, each with its own special meaning.
Oh, okay. Cue the dramatic music. Let's break down this sacrificial feast, starting with the sin offering bull. Aaron and his sons actually put their hands on this bull.
Yeah, they literally transfer all their sins onto it, just like that.
Really? Just like that?
Yeah. It's like they're getting rid of all their baggage, all their mistakes, their imperfections, putting it all onto this animal, and then it's slaughtered. This sacrifice shows how seriously they took sin and the need to make things right with God.
And it's really interesting that they burn the whole bull outside the camp. It's like they're physically removing sin from their community.
Exactly like they're saying, this doesn't belong here. Get rid of it.
Makes sense. Okay, sin offering done. Next, they bring in the burnt offering ram, again with Aaron and his sons laying their hands on it. This time, the whole thing is burnt on the altar, and it becomes a soothing aroma to God.
Fire is a big deal in these rituals. It symbolizes purification, a way of consuming the offering and sending it up to heaven.
It's interesting how fire can be both destructive and transformative, almost like it connects the earthly and the divine.
I like that, yeah. It's like a reminder that We need to let go of things sometimes to burn away the old to make room for the new.
All right, 2 down, 1 to go. The last sacrifice is the ram of ordination, and this one gets really up close and personal. Some of the ram's blood is actually put on Aaron's right earlobe, thumb, and big toe, and then his sons get the same treatment.
Like a blood-soaked signing ceremony. This act of anointing with blood symbolizes dedication and being chosen for God's service. It's like they're marked, both physically and spiritually, as belonging to God.
That's definitely a powerful image, especially when you think about how important blood was in the ancient world. It represented life itself. It's like they're being infused with new life, a new identity as priests. So we've got the washing, the fancy clothes, the oil, the blood. You'd think they'd be ready to start their jobs as priests, right?
Not quite yet. There's one more important part of this process, the wave offering. They take certain parts of the ram, the fat, a loaf of bread, and the right thigh, and they wave them before the Lord.
Wait, they're literally waving food in the air? What is that all about? Some ancient food dance I don't know about.
Think of it more as a gesture, like offering these special pieces to God, like saying, hey, this is the best we have, and we're giving it to you.
Okay, so not a dance move, but still pretty dramatic. And then those pieces are burned on the altar.
Right. The burning is like the offering being accepted by God, a spiritual transaction kind of thing.
But here's a twist. The breast of the ram isn't burned. It goes to Moses. Is he getting, like, special treatment?
It's more than just special treatment. This shows how important both the priest and the prophet were to the Israelites. Moses, the prophet, got the law from God, and Aaron, the priest, helped the people follow it. They worked together.
So it's like they're sharing a meal, but the meal is a sacrifice. Kind of a holy potluck.
That's a great way to put it. It really captures that idea of working together and being connected that was so central to their beliefs.
Okay, so we've got the washing, the dressing, the oil, the sacrifices, the wave offering. What else could they possibly fit into this week-long ordination marathon?
Well, this is the big finish. Moses takes some of that anointing oil and some blood from the altar, and he sprinkles it all over Aaron and his sons. It's like the final stamp of approval.
It's really interesting how blood is such a big part of this whole ritual. From the sacrifices to the anointing, it reminds me of life and death, sin, and forgiveness.
Blood was seen as the very core of life in the ancient world. So this sprinkling with blood could be like a symbolic giving of life, a new beginning for Aaron and his sons as priests.
It's like they're born again, becoming these new people with all the power and responsibility of being priests. But wait a minute. They've done all this, they're basically covered in symbolism, but they're still not done.
Nope. There's one more super important piece. They can't just walk out of the tabernacle and get to work. Aaron and his sons have to stay right there at the entrance for a whole week, 7 days.
7 days? What do they even do for a whole week? Just hang out and think deep thoughts?
Well, they have to follow some food rules, eating certain parts of the meat and bread, but it's mostly about being in this special place, away from the normal world. The text says they're being ordained over a 7-day period.
So it's like a spiritual lockdown. No social media, no errands. Just time to think and get ready. I wonder if they ever snuck out for a coffee break.
I doubt it. Remember, they had to follow God's instructions exactly. Even a small mistake could mess everything up.
It really makes you think about how dedicated and disciplined you had to be for a job like this. They weren't just priests, they were like a bridge between God and the people. The whole community depended on them.
And that's exactly why this elaborate week-long consecration ritual was so important. It wasn't just going through the motions. It was about a deep change, a new way of thinking, a dedication to serving God and being holy.
You know, it's easy to look at this and think, wow, that's intense. But I'm starting to see how it's more than just the actions themselves. It's about setting yourself apart, dedicating yourself to something bigger than yourself.
You got it. And that idea, wanting to connect to something sacred, something bigger than us, I think that's something we all feel even today, even if we show it in different ways.
So what does this all mean for us today? We don't really sacrifice bowls or wear ephods. What can we learn from Aaron's journey?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think the most important thing to remember is that even the most sacred things take preparation and attention. In a world where everything is so fast and distracting, it's easy to rush through things. But this ritual reminds us to slow down, to focus, to approach the things that matter with care and reverence.
It's like it's telling us to do the same in our own lives, to be dedicated and intentional in everything we do, whether it's our work, our relationships, or how we grow as people.
Exactly. It's about seeing the sacred in everyday life, about finding meaning and purpose, even in the little things.
given us a lot to think about today. I think I'll be thinking about this for a while.
Me too. There's always more to learn and explore. And hey, maybe you'll be the one to solve the mystery of the Urim and Thummim.
Well, speaking of mysteries, I can't let us finish without talking more about those Urim and Thummim. They're like a puzzle from ancient times, hidden in Aaron's breastpiece.
Yeah, they're fascinating. We've learned so much about the consecration, but those two objects are still a mystery.
Some scholars think they were used for telling the future, maybe even for talking directly to God, like having a direct line to the divine, but we don't even know what the phone looked like.
It shows that even in texts that have been studied for centuries, there are still secrets waiting to be discovered. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to figure them out.
It makes you wonder if those ancient priests, even after going through this intense week of rituals, ever felt like they had it all figured out, or if they were always trying to understand the mysteries of their faith, just like we do today.
That's so true. We might have different rituals and beliefs today, but that feeling of wonder, that desire to connect to something bigger than ourselves, is something everyone seems to feel. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, as we finish up our deep dive into this ancient consecration ritual, what do you think is the most important thing we can take away from it today? What can we learn from Aaron's incredible transformation?
For me, it's the reminder that even the most sacred things need preparation and attention. In a world of instant gratification and constant distractions, it's easy to rush through things to skim the surface. But this ritual reminds us to slow down, to be intentional, to approach the things that matter with reverence and care.
It's like a call to action to bring that same dedication and intentionality to everything we do in our lives, whether it's our work, our relationships, or how we grow as individuals.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the sacred in the everyday, about infusing our lives with meaning and purpose, even in the seemingly mundane.
Well, you've given us so much to think about today. I have a feeling I'll be pondering this conversation for quite some time.
Me too. It's been a fascinating exploration. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners out there will be the one to unlock the secrets of the Urim and Thummim.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive for today. But remember, the learning and exploration doesn't stop here. Keep asking questions, keep searching for new knowledge, and keep diving deep into the things that spark your curiosity. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. It really makes you think, you know. Even after this crazy week of rituals, do you think those ancient priests ever felt like they really understood it all? Or were they still wrestling with the mysteries of their faith like we do today?
That's a really good point. We might have different rituals and beliefs now, but that feeling of awe, that wanting to connect to something bigger than ourselves, it seems like everyone feels that. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. So we spent all this time deep diving into this ancient consecration ritual. What do you think is the biggest takeaway for us today? What can we learn from Aaron's journey?
Well, I think the most important thing is that even the most sacred things take preparation and focus. It's so easy to rush through things, especially with all the distractions we have today. But this ritual, it reminds us to slow down, to be present, to approach things with care and reverence. You know what I mean?
It's like it's telling us to do the same thing in our lives, be dedicated, be intentional in our work, our relationships, everything.
Exactly. It's about seeing the sacred in everyday life, about finding meaning and purpose, even in the little things.
You've given us so much to think about. I think I'll be thinking about this for a while.
Me too. It's been a fascinating journey. And hey, maybe one of our listeners will be the one to solve the mystery of the Urim and Thummim.
Well, on that note, it's probably time to wrap up our deep dive. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. Keep asking questions, keep searching for new knowledge, keep exploring. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.